You don't have to burn it all down to start again. Imagine standing at the edge of your career, business, or leadership path and realizing you've outgrown your current chapter. The goals you once chased don't excite you anymore. The title you worked years for is no longer aligned with who you are. But here's the real fear. If you pivot, you will lose everything you built. This video is not about starting over. It's about the leadership pivot and how to reinvent yourself without losing momentum. Because here's the truth. Most people wait until they're burnt out, irrelevant, or unhappy before they even think about making a shift. And when they finally do, they believe reinvention means abandoning everything, their identity, their reputation, and their network. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So if you're someone who's feeling the itch to evolve, but you're worried it'll cost you everything you work hard for, stay right here. You're about to discover that reinvention doesn't erase your past, it reframes it. And the smartest leaders use everything they've done before as leverage for what comes next. So in the next 15 minutes, you'll learn why reinvention is a sign of growth, not failure, how to recognize when it's time to pivot before you hit burnout or stagnation, what successful leaders do to shift direction while keeping their momentum and even accelerating it, and the step-by-step strategies to reposition your expertise, story, and influence in a new direction without starting from zero. We'll examine real-world examples such as how Satya Nadella transformed Microsoft's entire culture without abandoning its legacy, or how professionals reinvented themselves mid-career without compromising their credibility. So these stories are powerful because they show what's possible when you pivot with purpose. You'll also get the mindset tools to navigate this process because reinvention isn't just strategic, it's deeply personal. And if you get your mind right, these tactical steps become easier. By the end of this video, you won't just have a new lens on leadership reinvention, you'll have a roadmap. So let's get one thing straight. Reinvention does not mean starting from scratch. One of the biggest myths surrounding career pivots or leadership shift is the fear of losing everything. People assume that if you change direction, you're erasing your past, your achievements, your expertise, and your identity. But here's the reality. Your past is not a liability, it's leverage. Take someone like Bozoma St. John. She has worked at PepsiCo, Apple Music, Uber, and Netflix. These are vastly different brands, industries, and audiences. But what remained consistent? Her voice, her values, and her vision. Each pivot was a repackaging of her brand, not a dismantling of it. She didn't discard her past, she activated it in a new lane. This is the essence of strategic reinvention. So reinvention is not about abandoning what made you great. It's about evolving how that greatness shows up in the world. The foundation you already built, that's your launch pad. Momentum doesn't only come from titles and roles. It comes from relationships, trust, reputation, and the consistency of your performance over time. These are your assets. They compound. And here's a powerful truth. People trust reinvention more than they trust stagnation. So we admire those who evolve with courage and clarity because deep down, we are all trying to figure it out and how to change without collapsing everything. You are far more portable than you think. Strategic thinking, leadership presence, storytelling, negotiation, and resilience. These are core leadership assets that transcend industries. The real danger lies in believing the myth of starting over. That belief is paralyzing. It keeps people stuck in roles that no longer fit, forcing them to live out versions of themselves that expired years ago. But when you realize reinvention is an additive, not a subtractive, everything changes. You go from fear to focus. You start asking better questions, like how can I apply what I know in a larger, more ambitious context? Or what if I'm not leaving something behind? I'm actually stepping into something more aligned. The myth says you're back at zero. Reality says you've been building all along. Reinvention doesn't happen overnight. But the signs that it's time often arrive long before we act on them. Most leaders don't pivot because they're out of options. They pivot because they've outgrown their current role. The trick is to be able to recognize those signs before you hit burnout, boredom, or breakdown. Because once you're in crisis mode, your pivot becomes reactive rather than strategic. So, how do we know when it's time? So, number one, you're succeeding, but you're not satisfied. On paper, everything looks perfect. You're hitting your targets, leading a team, maybe even getting praise or promotions. But deep inside, that spark is fading. You're not challenged, not lit up, not driven the way you once were. This doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're evolving. If your growth has outpaced your environment, it's a sign that a pivot should unlock your next level. Number two, the problems no longer excite you. Great leaders are problem solvers at heart. But when you find yourself disinterested in the issues that used to energize you, it's time to pay attention. The work feels repetitive, disconnected from your values, or simply too small for your ambition. That discomfort is information. So number three, you're drawn to different conversations. This one is subtle but powerful. So the books you read, the podcasts you love, the people you resonate with, they often reflect where your energy is headed. You might notice you're less interested in management tactics and move into innovation, or shifting from corporate structure to entrepreneur's hip. Your curiosity is a compass. Don't ignore it. So number four, you feel like you're betraying your potential by staying. So this is a big one. If staying where you are feels like you're shrinking, like you're turning down the volume on your own ambition, that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. And it's your sign the cost of staying has officially outweighed the fear of change. Number five, the feedback loop has stopped. So when your work no longer generates meaningful feedback, whether it's from peers, mentors, or even yourself, you've likely hit a plateau. Growth requires tension, and when you're not being stretched, it's time to move. So before becoming a world-renowned psychologist and the best-selling author of Grit, Duckworth worked in management consulting, a role in which she excelled. But she felt a deep pull toward understanding human behavior, motivation, and perseverance. So she pivoted into teaching, then into psychology research. Her prior experience didn't go to waste though. It grounded her discipline, structure, and communication style. So today, her work influences how leaders worldwide think about resilience. Her pivot wasn't impulsive, it was intentional. So here's something to think about. The need to pivot doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're brave enough to follow growth, even when it's inconvenient. Some leaders ignore these signs for years, but the best ones learn to listen early, when the signals are soft whispers and not sirens. The most dangerous time in a leader's career isn't when they're failing, it's when they're succeeding at the wrong thing for far too long. So if this resonates, if you've been feeling that quiet nudge, that inner tension, don't silence it. Pay attention, because it could be the beginning of your most powerful pivot. So now that you've identified the signs, let's talk strategy. Reinvention isn't a leap of faith, it's a series of smart, strategic steps. The goal isn't to start over, it's to shift deliberately with your momentum intact. Here's how you do it. Step one, audit your strengths, assets, and credibility. So before making any move, take inventory of what you've built. Document your core skills, accomplishments, values, and professional network. These aren't just credentials, they're leverage points. Ask yourself, what do people consistently seek my input on? Or what problems do I solve easily that others find difficult? Or what values guide every decision I make? This isn't just a reflection, it's preparation. Clarity around your foundation allows you to pivot with precision. Step two, reposition, don't restart. So this is a critical distinction. Reinvention doesn't mean discarding the past. It means reinterpreting it through a new lens. You must own your history and use it to position yourself for your future. Update your narrative. When someone asks, "What do you do?" your answer should reflect your direction, not just your resume. So instead of saying, "I used to be in HR," say, "I help organizations build emotionally intelligent leadership teams." Drawing on 15 years of HR and culture building experience. That's powerfully strategic. Step 3, leverage your network intelligently. Your network isn't just a safety net, it's a launch pad. So inform your circle about your pivot. Share what you're moving toward and invite their insights and introductions. The key is to focus on relationships, not just roles. Be specific. Instead of "I'm exploring options," say, "I'm repositioning into executive coaching with a focus on high performance culture," right? People only help you if you give them something clear to anchor to. Step 4, learn in public. Visibility builds credibility. Start creating content, sharing your thought process, and engaging in conversations aligned with your pivot. Whether it's LinkedIn posts, newsletters, podcasts, or even panels, show up where your future self belongs. When people see you contributing to new conversations, they start to associate you with that space, and that speeds up the trust. Step 5, build a bridge strategy. You don't need to jump off a cliff. Create a transition model that supports your vision and your lifestyle. This could be consulting while you transition, launching a side project, freelancing, or getting certified in your new domain. The bridge protects your confidence and your cash flow. It gives you space to experiment without the pressure of perfection. When Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft, he didn't dismantle the company's legacy. He redirected its energy from a rigid, competitive culture to one of learning and empathy. He introduced growth mindset principles across teams, fostered collaboration, and redefined the company's relevance. That's a pivot. He didn't erase the past, he elevated it into a new context. Step 6, master the narrative. You control the story. Most people struggle with the pivot because they hesitate to acknowledge their evolution. Don't say, "I'm trying something new." Say, "I'm expanding into a new space where my experience creates even more impact." The more confidently you own your narrative, the more others believe it. Reinvention isn't just about direction, it's about perception. Step 7, embrace the identity shift. So reinvention starts with identity. You must stop seeing yourself as just your old role. Titles change, skills evolve, identities adapt. If you internally identify as the operations guy, you'll resist everything that doesn't fit into that mold. To pivot powerfully, you must consciously redefine who you are. Now you're a systems-minded strategist who optimizes performance across any vertical. Identity has gravity. You rise or fall to match it. Step 8, create quick wins to prove momentum. So in a new space, confidence comes from evidence. Set achievable strategic goals. Land a client. Host a workshop. Collaborate with a leader in your new field. These small victories validate your pivot to yourself and to your audience. Even better, they generate social proof. That accelerates your trajectory. So step 9, measure alignment, not just achievement. So when you pivot, the usual metrics may not apply. You may not get immediate validation. That's normal. Instead, measure things like, does this work energizes me? Am I in the rooms that stretch my thinking? Are my conversations pointing toward my future? These are the signs of real progress. Pay attention to them. Step 10, anchor yourself in your future self. So every decision in your pivot should be filtered through one question. Does this move me closer to who I am becoming? Imagine yourself 5 years from now, living in alignment and operating at full capacity. What would that version of yourself say yes to? And what would they walk away from? That's your compass. Brene Brown didn't start out as a leadership expert. She was a researcher, quietly studying shame and vulnerability. But as her message gained traction, she leaned into public speaking, corporate training, and content creation. Her pivot wasn't abandoning academia, it was expanding it. Today, she sits at the intersection of research and real world leadership. Reinvention made that possible. So, bottom line, you're not here to start over, you're here to evolve. Reinvention is a skill, and every step you take toward your future builds on what you've already done. So, pivot boldly with strategy, with a story, with your momentum intact. Reinvention isn't a career move, it's a leadership muscle. If you've been feeling the pull to pivot, to evolve, to realign your work with who you've become, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. You're not running from something, you're running toward your next level. So today we debunk the myth that reinvention equals starting over. We explore the signals that it's time to shift, the strategies to pivot without losing momentum, and the mindset that makes it all sustainable. So if you take nothing else from this video, remember this: you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. You've already established the credibility, the skills, and perspective. Now it's time to point all of that in the right direction that actually excites you. You're not late, you're not behind, you're actually where you need to be, at the threshold of something powerful. And if this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's on the edge of their next chapter. Hit the like button if you found value, subscribe if you're committed to growth, and drop a comment. Let us know what's the pivot you've been thinking about and what's the mindset shift that made it real for you. Because your next chapter deserves to be written, and this time with intention. Until next time, stay sharp, stay focused, and lead forward.